here's my audience. Here's my visual aid. Okay, we're gonna get started. Okay. All right. My granny was that granny. She knew how to knit, sew, cook, crochet, quilt, and just about everything in between. She taught me most of these things at a young age. However, the one thing I forgot how to do was how to knit. One day I was lucky enough to come across a tutorial that taught me not only how to knit, but to do it without needles. While this tutorial will mainly be interesting to women, I know that men also like to wear scarves, and everyone likes to be budget friendly. So this is a budget friendly way to create something of your own. I'm not an expert at this. I did not create the tutorial for this. However, I have made a lot of scarves for my friends and family within the past year. I can estimate I probably made about 25 to 30. And it is a quick enough thing to do that you can do it while watching TV in an evening. By the end of today, I hope that you know at least the basics of how to arm knit your very own scarf. And we're going to talk about how to pick out materials, how to cast on, and how to cast off to finish your scarf. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how to pick out your materials. There's only 4 things that you need. You need your arms, your hands, a pair of scissors, and of course yarn. Now you want to be very specific in the type of yarn that you pick out. According to Michaels Stores, you want to use a bulky yarn, and you want to at least start out with 2 skeins of yarn, and you want to look at the weight, and you want to have at least 0.25 pounds in weight. If you want a thicker scarf, you can up the weight and use 3 or 4 skeins or however many you like. Now that we've talked about how to pick out your materials, we can talk about how to cast on. So casting on in knitting terms means the first stitch. And this is going to go very fast, but just know that there's resources out there to help you so that you can work at your own pace. According to Instructables.com, the first thing you want to do is to measure out your tail of your scarf. And you want to do that about 4 to 5 times the length of your arm. So I've already done that. And then the next step is to create a slip knot. And I've already done that. You can find out how to do that online if you need help doing that. But I've created a slip knot. I'm going to tighten it up on my wrist. You don't want it extremely tight, but you want it sort of snug. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab all 4 strings. And I'm going to put my hands up like guns up, and you're going to put your 2 fingers through those 4 strings. Now I'm keeping those separate still. Okay, so I'm putting my fingers through and I'm pointing up. So now I've got them sort of like this. I'm going to take this outside stitch, put my whole hand through, and then there's a stitch here in the middle. And you're going to like scoop it up and put your hand and push it through that loop right there. And it goes around your wrist. You drop everything else and you tighten it up on your wrist. Again, you want to keep it kind of snug. Grabbing all 4, putting my fingers through, guns up, pointing up, and then you take that outside stitch, put your whole hand through, you scoop up this one, and you put your hand through and drop everything else and tighten. I'm going to do it one more time. Outside stitch, whole hand through. I'm going to scoop this one up, almost grab it, and put my hand through it, drop everything else, and tighten up a little bit. Okay, so you want to do that about 11 to 12 times. If you want a thinner scarf, you can do it about 6 times. And then I'm going to teach you the knitting part. So now that we've got all of our first stitches on there, we're not going to use our tail anymore. We're going to leave it to the side. Now we're going to be working with our working yarn that's attached to our skeins of yarn. You're going to keep the working yarn in your hand, take that first stitch over your hand, pull the working yarn through, twist it, put your next hand through it, and tighten it up on your wrist. You can wiggle just to tighten it up a little bit. And I'm still keeping a space about that big between the 2. Working yarn, pull that stitch over, pull the working yarn through, twist and tighten. Pull it over your hand, your next stitch, pull the working yarn through, twist, tighten. And the last stitch, we're pulling it over, working yarn through, twist, and I'm tightening. And now I've created my first row of stitches. As you can see, I've created lots of row of these stitches on here. And you want to do this about 12 times for a single wraparound scarf, or 20 to do a double wraparound. Okay. Now that we've talked about how to pick out your products, how to cast on, we're going to finish out with how to cast off. And you can do this according to flaxandtwine.com. I'm going to show you how to do this. So they tell you to do the first 2 stitches just like you did before. Pull it over the working yarn, twist, put it on your next wrist. I'm going to do the next stitch, pull it over, pull the working yarn through, twist, and tighten. Okay, now I've got 2 stitches right here. You're going to take the stitch that is closest to your body, pull it over that first stitch, but you're not going to pull the working yarn through. You're going to leave it where it's at and then drop that stitch. And then you just wriggle your wrist to tighten. I'm going to do the next one, so I'll have 2 stitches on my right hand. Pull that one closest to you over that other stitch. Don't pull the working yarn through, just drop it. And you're going to wiggle to tighten and pull that last stitch over. And one closest to my body, pull it over, don't pull the working yarn through, drop it, and then tighten. Now for this last one, I like to go ahead and cut off, pull that through, and I like to pull the stitch through so I can tighten it, and now it's a knot. Same with this one. This is the tail end of your scarf. You can cut that off and make a knot. And there you go. Now, of course, your scarf's not going to look like that. It's going to look like this with all these stitches. And so congratulations, you have learned the basics of how to create your very own scarf just by using your hands and arms. It will take some practice, but now you know how to knit without needles. The 3 things we talked about today were we talked about how to pick out your materials, how to cast on, and how to cast off to finish your scarf. Scarves make great gifts for your friends and family, or also a gift for yourself. It's an easy and budget-friendly way to get crafty, and with time and practice, you will figure it out. There are many resources out there. Look on Pinterest and YouTube on how to get visuals and go at your own pace. Thank you so much.